Heidi here from Rain Country. God is good all the time. And today I'm going to show you how you can take the pulp from any of the nut milks you make and then dehydrate it up and grind it and then use it as a flour in whatever it is that you would normally use nut flours in, especially if you're gluten-free. So let's get started. So what I have here is a completed batch of almond milk, and this is from those almonds you've heard me talk about before that I found on Amazon through the Subscribe and Save. They are organic, 100% organic. They've not been irradiated or sprayed with anything, and they are raw. So I'm very pleased with these almonds, and I will link to them below. So I still can get quite a bit of milk out of this pulp, and I like to get as much out for a couple of reasons. One, so I have as much of my almond milk available to me to use, but also so that I can get my pulp as dry as possible. Now you can just let this sit and strain, but I find it best to just kind of squeeze it out. You're going to get just a lot more out of it if you come back periodically and squeeze it, especially if you kind of massage this batch of pulp just like you would with the cheese when you're making cheese. I find that that strains it out a lot quicker. You're going to get a lot more liquid out of it that way in a shorter amount of time. Okay, and as wet as that may feel right there, you'll be surprised when you open it up and then find out just how dry your pulp is. So that's actually pretty good. You can see how it's crumbling. And I'm just going to take the pulp, and this is just a plain old piece of cotton fabric that I use only for straining out stuff like this. You can also use cheesecloth. When I'm doing the nut milks, for some reason I prefer to use that over the cheesecloth and save the cheesecloth for using with my cheese. Now I'll be showing you the off-grid way that I do it, but if you don't have a wood stove, you're going to want to do this in your conventional oven, and I suggest setting your oven on a low temperature and putting your cookie sheet in the middle of your oven, on the middle rack, and then just checking it. I have no idea how long it's going to take. You may just have to keep coming back and checking it and stirring it, because that is what I do when I do this on the wood stove. So, and also the stoneware cookie sheet, I love these things. I will also provide a link below to this exact cookie sheet that I use. I love this stoneware for doing stuff like that. And then about this milk, it's got a more tan color than usual, partly because I added some vanilla extract as well as some medjool dates for just a little more flavor in the milk. It makes it really yummy that way. So I got a whole quart of almond milk out of those almonds. It was about just a heavy cup, not a level cup, but a very full cup of the raw almonds that I started with. If I was to use just one level cup of almonds, I can get a quart of almond milk, organic, raw. I know what's in it. There's no carrageenan, there's no other things added to it that are usually just put in there for fluff to help keep it all, from separating and all that. But all you got to do is shake it, okay? I know exactly what's in here. Organic dates, organic homemade vanilla extract, and organic raw almonds. That's all I've got in here, plus the filtered rainwater. And then I'm gonna get this, since this was a big a heaping cup of almonds, I'll probably get maybe as much as a cup and a half of flour out of this. And so the price comparative when I did it came out to somewhere between 1/5 and 1/4 of the price of what I would pay for the lowest cost of almond flour and almond milk at the store. And I know it's entirely organic. So I'm going to go put this on my wood stove, and then I'll take you in there and show you what that looks like. All right, so I'm here in the living room, and I've got my dehydrator rack here. Now, if I wanted to, I can still put several trays of other things that I might want to dehydrate right in here. This rack that he built is perfect for holding my cookie sheet at the top or my 13.5 by 13.5 stainless steel screens that I use for making my jerky, and anything else I'm going to dehydrate. I'm going to let this dehydrate up here, and I'm going to come back and check it. It might take a couple of hours, and I'm just going to keep stirring it. Usually I'll come in here with a spatula or fork, a big fork, and then just keep stirring it around. And then when it gets completely dry, then I'm going to grind it up into a nice fine flour. And I probably won't do that till tomorrow, so the next time you see me, I'll very likely be wearing different clothes. Okay, so I'll be back when this is ready for the next step, and I'm ready to move on to that even if it's tomorrow. All right, well, it's the next day. My almond pulp is all dried out, and I'm gonna go ahead and start processing it to turn it into a finer flour. So what I do, this is just my wax fabric here I had it covered with. You can see what it looks like. So a lot of times you'll find when you're drying it, it kind of will clump and sometimes make some pretty hard clumps. So I found the easiest way to do this is you can do it in your blender, but I found a coffee grinder works really well. So you might just have to put in little bits at a time. So I'm going to get busy putting this in there and processing it, and then I'll be putting it in this measuring cup to see how much I end up with at the end. Okay, so I have about 1 1/4 cups of the almond flour now. It tends to want to clump together. It's a lot drier than it looks, and it's a lot finer than it looks. However, it's still a little more on the coarse side. Now, I did try doing this before in my country living grain mill, but because of the nature of almond flour or almond pulp, it wanted to clump up in there, so it didn't do very well in there. So using the coffee grinder was the choice. I would say muffins and pancakes would be a perfect use for the almond flour, and I really wanted to do that with this. However, I also want to show you something else I tried the last time I did this, and that was making those gluten-free crackers, that recipe I got from Wanda. And I'm going to show you how I did that, because, and the reason why is that I actually liked the flavor of these crackers, the way they turned out making this, and I came up with a better idea on rolling out the dough than using the wax paper, so I don't have to waste that. So let me get to that. I'm going to go ahead and mix up this. I suppose I can do it on camera. I have that other video right up here if you want to check it out. But I guess I'll go ahead and do this one on camera too, so you can see the recipe again if you want, or you can skip through towards the end and see what my little trick is in rolling it up. All right, since this isn't 1 3/4 cups of flour, I'm going to tailor the recipe a little bit. It's going to be just a bit different than what I did there, and kind of cut back on some of the things. I'm going to use just under a ½ teaspoon of salt, and this is the Himalayan pink salt. I'm going to add garlic to this blend. Oh, about let's say a whole tablespoon. And then some rosemary. I'm going to put in a heaping tablespoon of that. Love the rosemary in it. I have yet to try any other things, as far as some different herbs, because I just like the rosemary so much in these crackers. I can't imagine I would like any other herb better. But I'm also going to add some black pepper, because when it comes to crackers, that's one of the things I enjoy black pepper in, is things like this. Okay, now I'm just going to mix that a little bit with my fingers. Now I'm going to go ahead and use a whole egg in this, even though it's a smaller recipe. And then I want up to a tablespoon of the oil. I'm not going to divide an egg in half. So what I'll do is just choose one of the smallest eggs my chickens are laying. Though my chickens have been laying full-size eggs these days, there's still those occasional smaller ones, as any of you chicken people know. All right, so here's a smaller egg right here. So this will work good. And I'm just going to crack that right in there. Just pour in a little bit of the oil. So that's not, I would say that's probably about yeah, we'll put in just a little bit more, because I know it's not a tablespoon. I'd say it was about 1.5 teaspoons. So maybe about 2 teaspoons would be good for this. Kind of blend that in there real good. Sometimes using your hands is just the easiest way to get it blended, and also to feel the texture and find out if it's how you want it. Here's the cookie sheet I was just using, and I'm just going to use a small silicone spatula to spread a good layer of butter on the bottom of the pan. Again, I find the little silicone spatulas are much easier for spreading butter than using the brushes. I use the brushes for other things, you know, if I'm spreading oil on a hot surface, but the spatulas are much better for spreading butter or coconut oil into a pan, in my opinion, because if you've used the brushes before, I don't care if it's a silicone brush or one of the hair brushes, pastry brushes, the butter just gets all glommed up in there, and to me it just seems like a huge waste of butter. I'm just going to go ahead and put this right on my cookie sheet and start pressing it out a little bit with my hands. And now, since we're trying to keep this gluten-free, your options are, you can have some flour on hand, whatever gluten-free flour that you're using. Again, we're not gluten-free, and I just every now and then do like to do gluten-free stuff, because I do think a lot of times it's healthier, but we don't have any gluten sensitivities here, and I believe that using a good organic whole wheat flour that you've pre-soaked and all that is really good, and that I noticed that we just do better with that. Now, the next trick I do is taking the rolling pin I had Mr. Rain make specifically for me so I could roll things directly in the pan, and then taking a piece of one of my waxed fabric sheets and putting it over the dough and then rolling it like that. I'm using something that's reusable. I know what wax is on it. It's beeswax. I got to thinking, what kind of wax do they even use on that wax paper? I thought about that after I did those crackers, because wax paper is something I just rarely ever use. But anyway, you can just do it like that. You can just kind of keep checking it. That's the only hard thing, is you can't really see what you're doing when you're using the fabric. But you just lift it up and you just keep rolling and keep working it until you get it as thin as you want it. And this works really good. Look, it's not sticking to my wax fabric. And if you haven't seen how I make my wax fabric, I have a video I did on this a year ago. In fact, this is one of the ones I did a year ago in that video. And you can find that right up here. Sometimes the wax fabric isn't always ideal for replacing saran wrap, but there's many things it is good for that I use it for quite often, and I'm finding this right here is just wonderful. So I'm using a good organic beeswax and not whatever kind of wax is on that wax paper. That's just great. All right, well, I'm going to continue to roll these out because I don't want to bore you to death with this until I get it where I want it. And my oven is set at 400 degrees, and then I'm going to bake it from somewhere between 12 to 15 minutes. You want to watch these closely or they will burn. That same rule applies to any kind of crackers you make. So you have to watch them closely. Like when I do the lavish cracker recipe, that is a bread, a yeast bread type cracker, those ones bake up like in 3 minutes. And if you go any longer than that, they burn. So anytime you're making crackers and you're doing it in an oven like that, you've got to watch them closely. Anyway, I'll continue this and then I'll show you the crackers when they're all done. All right, well, remember that part where I said you need to keep a close eye on your crackers? Yeah, I kind of forgot. And I also forgot, because I rarely use my conventional oven, that it tends to bake hot. So even though I set it at the lower amount of minutes, they still got a little dark around the edge of some of them. And however, they're still very good. And my last ones I did perfect. I didn't burn them. And those are the ones you'll see in the thumbnail, and I'll go ahead and insert a picture at the end of this video so that you can see what those look like. And those are the ones I served with some of the homemade goat cheese that you can find in another video right up here. And oh man, they were so good like that. Well, I hope this video was helpful to you in realizing that not only can you make your own nut milk with whatever nuts you want, from almonds to cashews to walnuts and pecans, whatever you like. Brazil nuts is also another good choice, but you can also take the pulp and make your own flour from that. So really what this was about was I wanted to show you there's a way you can do this and spend only 1/5 of the price on these things, from the milk to the flour, than what you would buying the cheapest brand in the store, and having the benefit of knowing exactly what is going into your milk when you're making it, as well as the flour. All right. Oh, and then all the different ways you can use it. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed this video and that you learned something new. Thanks for watching. Take care, and God bless.